Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are stepping away from the usual high-flying tech startups and AI software to look at something much more tangible,
Right.
something you see literally every day on the streets of Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore.
Yeah, pretty much every city in India.
Right. We are talking about the surprisingly cutthroat battle for the soul of the Indian automobile industry.
Hmm.
And no, I don't mean the fight between EVs and petrol engines.
No, we're looking at the aftermath of the drive. We're talking about the dust, the mud, and the billion-dollar question of how to actually get it off your car. It's this classic showdown of man versus machine.
Exactly. We are diving into a debate that's currently raging in the entrepreneurial world. So on one corner, you have the shiny, futuristic promise of high-tech automated car wash tunnels. Robots, lasers, foam cannons, the works. And in the other corner, you have a guy with a bucket, a rag, and some serious hustle.
It sounds like a total David and Goliath story, but when you really look at the economics, and we've got a great stack of sources today, ranging from Reddit threads to industry reports from Register, Caro, and Blueverse, it is not entirely clear who Goliath actually is in this scenario.
Yeah, that's the fascinating part, because while the robot looks powerful, the economic reality of the bucket guy is a fortress that's incredibly hard to breach.
Right.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's set the stakes. Why are we even talking about car washes?
Well, because the numbers are staggering. According to the data from Register Caro, the Indian automobile industry is just absolutely booming right now. People are buying cars at a record pace, and naturally, those cars need cleaning.
Right.
The car wash sector alone in India is projected to hit nearly 1,440.9 million US dollars by 2030.
That is a massive pie, almost $1.5 billion.
It is, and right now that market is largely unorganized, it's fragmented, so every entrepreneur with a bit of capital is looking at this and thinking, I can be the McDonald's of car washes. They want to bring order to the chaos.
And that exact impulse led us to a really interesting thread on the entrepreneur subreddit. It started with a user named Background Ranger 917, who asked a very simple, very direct question. Can automated car washes actually make you money in India?
Which is a totally fair question. I mean, in the US or Europe, automated car washes are basically cash cows. You set up the machine, you hire one person to watch it, and you just collect the cash. But the response this user got from the Indian community was, well, let's call it a massive reality check.
It was brutal. Honestly, I was expecting people to talk about location strategy or marketing tactics. Instead, it was just this wall of skepticism. And the biggest hurdle they pointed out immediately was the cheap labor factor.
Right, and this is the core tension here. User Background Ranger 917 actually flagged this in their own post. In Western markets, you buy $1 million robot because labor costs $15 or $20 an hour. You literally cannot afford to have 10 guys hand washing cars all day. The robot is the cheaper option.
But in India,
In India, the labor arbitrage is completely flipped. You can hire a whole team of people to hand wash cars for a fraction of what it costs to maintain a German-engineered robot.
there was a comment from a user, Suzanok, that really summed up the competition perfectly. They said, quite simply, 100 rupees, and the watchman washes the car.
And that right there is the price floor. It's the single biggest barrier to entry for any premium car wash business. Your competitor isn't the slick detailing shop down the street charging 500 rupees. It's the building watchman who does it for 100.
But let's be honest here. I have had my car washed by the watchman. It's not a real wash. It's usually a dirty rag that's been dropped on the ground, just swirling dust around my paint. It leaves swirl marks. It scratches the clear coat. Surely there is a market for people who actually care about their cars.
You would think so. And yes, there is a segment of enthusiasts who care deeply. But for the average consumer, convenience is king. The watchman is already there. You don't have to drive anywhere. You wake up and the car looks clean enough from a distance. That lack of friction is incredibly valuable to people.
So the argument from the community is that the robot is basically a solution looking for a problem.
In terms of pure labor economics, yes. But the Reddit thread went much deeper than just wages. It wasn't only about the cost of labor, it was about the cost of failure.
Oh, right, the maintenance nightmare.
Exactly. There was a user, FarPotential3634, who shared this crazy horror story about their brother's car wash in Alabama.
I remember this one. It read like a complete comedy of errors.
It really did. They talked about constant breakdowns, sensors failing randomly, and just the nightmare of upkeep. But the detail that really stood out was the vandalism. People slicing off vacuum hoses just for the fun of it.
And the point the expert community was making is, if that happens in Alabama, Imagine the headache you'd face in India.
Spot on. Think about the supply chain for a second. If a high-tech sensor on your automated tunnel breaks in Alabama, maybe you can get a replacement part shipped from a warehouse in Atlanta by the next morning. Your downtime is minimal.
But if that exact same sensor breaks in Bangalore,
You are likely importing that part internationally. You're dealing with customs. You're dealing with a lack of specialized technicians who actually know how to fix that specific brand of robot. Your business could be down for weeks.
and while you are down, you have this massive capital expenditure, this CapEx, just sitting there doing absolutely nothing.
That is the killer. In the industry, we call it asset uptime. In a manual model, if a washer gets sick or decides to quit, you just hire another guy the next day. The business keeps running. The manual model is incredibly resilient. The automated model is efficient, sure, but it's brittle. If one link in the chain snaps, your whole revenue stream stops dead.
So you've got high CapEx, high maintenance risk, and a competitor in the Watchman who works for peanuts. It sounds like the Reddit thread was right on the money. Just don't build a robot wash.
Well, not so fast. Because there is another massive factor that kills the drive-to-car wash model, regardless of whether it's manual or automatic. And that factor is traffic.
A Bangalore context.
Yeah, if you live in a metro area like Bangalore, Mumbai, or Delhi, you know that distance isn't measured in kilometers, it's measured in minutes, and usually a lot of minutes.
A user on the thread pointed this out so perfectly. They said people just aren't going to spend so much time in traffic just to get a wash.
Put yourself in the consumer's shoes for a second. It's Saturday, you have a million errands to run. Are you really going to drive 20 minutes out of your way, sit in gridlock, wait in line for another 20 minutes at the car wash, and then drive 20 minutes back? That is an hour and a half gone.
I definitely wouldn't do it. I'd look at the dust on my car and say, yeah, I can wait another week.
And that is exactly what happens. We have data from a company called Speed Car Wash that backs this up entirely. They found a statistic that is frankly mind-blowing. They claim that 68% of car owners never visit a washing outlet in their entire lifetime.
Wait, nearly 70%?
Yes, 68%.
So if you invest 50 lakhs or a crore to build a state-of-the-art washing center, you are fighting for only 32% of the total market.
Correct. You are completely ignoring the vast majority of car owners because your business model requires them to come to you. And in the traffic-choked reality of Indian cities, they simply refuse to do it.
This feels like a complete dead end then. The Watchman does a bad job, but the professional center is way too inconvenient. Is there any middle ground here?
This is exactly where the smart entrepreneurs in our sources started to pivot. If the mountain won't come to Muhammad, Muhammad must go to the mountain.
The doorstep model.
Exactly. The mobile car wash. This completely solves the two biggest problems we've identified so far, the high cost of real estate and the friction of urban traffic.
We looked at a really interesting case study for this. A company called Car Cleaners, founded by Divan Raja.
This was such a great example of spotting a gap in the market. Vang Raja was working a corporate job, and he noticed exactly what you mentioned earlier. The local guys cleaning cars were doing it in a very haphazard manner. It was messy, and it was completely unprofessional.
So he didn't try to replace the labor with a robot. He tried to upgrade the labor itself.
He professionalized it. He launched what he calls a zero-ego company.
I loved that phrase when I read it. What does that actually mean in practice, though?
It's essentially an HR strategy. In the unorganized sector, people are often treated as disposable. It's just, hey, you, wash the car. Raja changed the narrative completely. He gave his staff real designations. Everyone, including him, is a car caretaker. He standardized the uniforms, the equipment, the training.
It sounds like a small branding thing, but I imagine makes a huge difference in trust. If I'm handing over my keys or letting someone into my driveway, I want them to look professional.
Trust is the absolute currency here. And financially, the mobile model is just so much leaner. We crunched the numbers from Vishnu Auto Connect and the Register Caro data to compare.
Let's talk about the startup costs. If I want to launch a mobile business today, what am I looking at?
You need a bike or a small van, a portable generator, a high-pressure washer, and a vacuum. You are fully operational for maybe 3 to 5 lakhs.
That is incredibly accessible for a new entrepreneur.
It really is. Now compare that to a stationary setup. Even a basic manual bay needs land, construction, local permissions. You are looking at 15 to 25 lakhs minimum easily. And for a fully automated tunnel, you're talking massive numbers and very high risk.
And the risk profile is totally different too. If I build a stationary tunnel and the road gets closed for metro construction, which happens all the time, my business is just dead. I'm stuck there.
Exactly. You have this massive anchor tied around your neck. With the mobile model, if a neighborhood isn't working out or if the traffic patterns change, you just drive your van to a different neighborhood. It is completely agile.
So if I'm listening to this and I have some money to invest, the answer seems completely obvious. Forget the robots. Buy a fleet of vans. The mobile manual model wins on cost, it wins on convenience, and it drastically lowers risk.
If we were living in a world with infinite resources, I would agree with you 100%. But we aren't. And there is a looming crisis that might make the bucket and hose model, whether it's the Watchman or the mobile van, totally obsolete.
We guess. We need to talk about water.
We have to talk about water. This is the variable that changes the entire equation.
We looked at a source from Blueverse, which is a company that specializes in vehicle washing technology. And the numbers they shared on water usage are terrifying.
They are a standard car wash, and this applies to the guy with the hose just as much as an old-school machine uses anywhere from 50 to 100 gallons of water per vehicle.
Per vehicle.
Per vehicle. Globally, the car wash industry consumes about 420 billion liters of water annually.
That is just, it's hard to even visualize that much water.
In a country like India, where groundwater tables are plummeting and major cities are facing day zero scenarios every single summer, that level of consumption is simply not sustainable.
And the bucket wash isn't innocent here either, is it?
No, and it's actually worse in some ways because of the pollution aspect.
Yeah.
When the watchman or the mobile guy washes a car on the street, where does all that runoff go?
It just runs straight down the driveway and into the storm drain.
Right, and it's not just water. It's carrying oil, grease, brake dust, and whatever harsh, cheap detergents they are using. It goes straight into the storm drains, which often feed into local lakes or seep right back into the groundwater. It is an environmental disaster.
So this is where the robots make their big comeback. Because usually I think of massive machines as being wasteful, but you're saying they might actually be the green option.
Modern automation is absolutely a sustainability play. The Blueverse technology is based entirely on the concept of a closed loop.
How does a closed loop work in this context?
It means the water you use to wash the car is captured, treated, and then used to wash the exact next car. They claim that with their recycling systems, they can reduce fresh water consumption by 96%.
96%. So you're basically washing the car with the exact same water over and over again.
Effectively, yes. And the technology to do that is quite sophisticated. It's not just running it through a coffee filter. They use oil and grease skimmers to separate the heavy pollutants. Then they use media filters for the dirt. And this is the part I found really fascinating. They use UV disinfection.
Why UV? Is the car going to catch a disease?
No, it's for the smell. One of the biggest complaints in the early days of water recycling tech was that the recycled water stank. It smelled like rotten eggs because of anaerobic bacteria growing in the holding tanks.
Yeah.
Imagine paying for a premium wash and your car comes out smelling like a literal swamp.
Yeah, that would be a complete deal breaker for any customer.
So the UV kills the bacteria and keeps the water completely neutral.
Okay, so the tech definitely works. But does the average customer actually care? I mean, are people really going to choose a more expensive automated wash just to save water?
Maybe not the customer today, but the government cares. And that is the massive regulatory risk here. We are already seeing the Central Pollution Control Board, the CPCB, tightening their norms. In severe drought years, we've already seen cities temporarily ban the use of fresh water for washing cars.
So we could easily reach a point where the bucket and hose method is literally illegal in major metros.
It is very possible. If regulations tighten to the point where you must demonstrate zero liquid discharge or a high percentage of recycling, the mobile guy with the van is instantly out of business. He cannot carry a recycling plant on the back of his bike.
But the automated tunnel can.
The automated tunnel is the only model that can afford the infrastructure to actually comply. So suddenly that high capex isn't a bug anymore, it's a feature. It becomes the regulatory moat that protects your entire business.
That creates a really fascinating split in the market.
It does. I think we are heading toward a major bifurcation. In residential areas, for quick convenience, the doorstep model will absolutely dominate, at least until the water laws catch up with them. But for high-volume needs, think fleet management, taxi companies, massive corporate parks.
Places that need to wash 500 cars a day efficiently.
Yeah, exactly. For them, the machine wins hands down. Not because it's cheaper per wash, but because it's the only way to do it legally and sustainably at that scale.
Okay, so we have covered the tech, the labor economics, and the environmental impact. But there is one piece of the puzzle left: the customer. Because whether you are a guy with a van or a giant robot tunnel, you still need people to keep coming back.
And this brings us to the final hurdle: customer loyalty. Or rather, the complete lack of it in this industry.
The Register Caro data used a term I hadn't heard before, but instantly recognized in my own behavior: deal hopping.
We are all totally guilty of it.
If I see a sign that says 50% off a premium wash, I do not care where I went last week. I'm going to the new place.
And that is a margin killer for the owner. In a low-margin business like car washing, if you have to reacquire every single customer with a steep discount, you will bleed to death. You desperately need retention.
So how do you fix it? We looked at a guide from Loopy Loyalty that broke down the psychology of this.
They discussed something called the goal gradient effect.
Sounds like a concept from a physics textbook.
It's actually a well-known behavioral psychology principle. It basically says the closer you get to a goal, the harder you will work to reach it. Think about a digital stamp card on your phone. Buy 9 washes, get the 10th free.
Right.
When you have just one stamp, you don't really care. You might wait a full month before your next wash. But when you have 8 stamps, you can clearly see the finish line.
Yeah.
You will actually start washing your car more frequently just to get that final reward.
You are literally hacking the customer's brain.
You are aligning their incentives with yours. And this is a massive, but Loopy Loyalty warns that most business owners get the actual reward completely wrong.
They give away the free wash.
Exactly. And that is a huge mistake. If your margins are already tight, giving away a full service directly hurts your bottom line. It also subtly devalues the core service in the customer's mind.
So what should a business give instead?
You give a high-value upgrade.
Like what, specifically?
Like a premium wax polish, or a professional tire shine, or maybe an interior deep clean.
Ah, I see the logic there. The wax costs the business what? A few rupees in raw material?
Negligible cost. The labor is already there washing the car anyway. But to the customer, a premium wax feels like a true luxury. It feels like a $20 value.
So you completely protect your cash flow, but the customer still feels like a VIP.
Precisely. And by doing it digitally, keeping it in their Apple Wallet or Google Pay, you solve the other big problem, which is people constantly losing those little paper cards.
I have lost every single punch card I have ever been handed.
We all have. If it's on their phone, the business can send a push notification. Hey, it's been raining all week. Come in for a wash and get your 9th stamp. That is exactly how you build a lasting habit.
So let's try to pull all these different threads together. We started this deep dive with a Reddit thread asking a binary question: man or machine? Can robots actually make money in India?
And as usual with the deep dive, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. It's, well, it depends.
It depends entirely on what problem you are actually solving.
Right. If you go back to that Reddit thread, everyone was arguing about the pure cost of cleaning. They kept saying the watchman cleans for cheaper. But I really think that's the wrong metric to focus on.
What's the right metric then?
Friction.
Explain that for us.
If you are entering this market as an entrepreneur, you need to ask yourself, what specific friction am I removing? If you are in a dense residential neighborhood, the friction is time. People do not want to drive in traffic. So the doorstep model wins. You aren't really selling a clean car. You are selling the hour of life the customer saves.
And the machine, where does that fit in?
If you are in a commercial zone or dealing with huge fleets, the friction is scale and compliance. You need to wash incredibly fast, and you need to not get shut down by the pollution control board. There, the machine absolutely wins. You are selling reliability and legal compliance.
It's fascinating. We usually think of business as just product versus product, but really it's about deeply understanding the specific pain point of the customer in that specific location.
Exactly. There was a comment from user Skash on Reddit that nailed this perfectly. They said the problem isn't just the cleaning itself, it's the time taken to clean.
And that leads me perfectly to a final thought for you, the listener. A provocative question to chew on as you think about this industry.
Let's hear it.
In a market where a watchman will clean a car for 100 rupees, are you actually in the cleaning business? Because if you are just selling clean, you lose. He is always going to be cheaper.
You have to be selling something else entirely.
You have to be selling time, you have to be selling trust, or you have to be selling sustainability.
That is the key right there. If you can figure out which of those 3 things the customer values most in your specific area, you can beat the watchman.
And whether you do it with a $1 million German robot or a guy on a motorbike with a pressure washer is really just a detail.
Absolutely.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the surprisingly complex nuts and bolts of Indian car washes. Who knew there was so much intense strategy behind just soap and water?
There's always way more beneath the surface.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep those windshields clean, and we will see you next time.